Hi everyone, I'm Sandy,
I'm Francesca.
and we're from Pretty Little Book Nerds, and we are here today to share with you I can't even say it, our October wrap up. That's how rough October was. So we're just gonna roll with it. We're just gonna roll with this. So each of us had some successes and had some failures. So we will share both of those with you, what we made it through, what we didn't make it through. And then you can also check out our November TBR videos where we filmed them separately, and you can see what we're going to be up to in November. So Francesca, would you like to start with your October wrap up and tell me what you read?
Sure. So I had 6 books selected for my October TBR. I got to 5 of them. And of the 5, I have to say, trying to pick a favorite was a little bit difficult because I truly enjoyed all of them. I really, really did. So I'm going to go through. Sandy and I both read The Holdout and The Beautiful as Buddy reads back in October. We do have a video up on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out if you want to hear our thoughts about that. I'm not going to spend time discussing those just because we've already done that. I am going to spend some time talking about the books that I did get to. So my first one was, oh God, it was so good. It was so good. It was The Betrayal. It was the first book in the Fear Street saga. I mentioned in another video that it was definitely giving me like the Crucible vibes with the character names, the setting, just the storyline. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I did purchase the second one off of Amazon, and then my bookish best friend Sandra sent me the third one, so it's back there on the shelf. I will be reading it, but I felt like October, I spent a lot of time reading thrillers and some horror and some mystery, and so in November so far I've been reading really like light, cute reads because I need that right now.
Palette cleanser.
Yeah, I need that. And I feel like, and I'm sure everybody in the US and probably around the world can agree that the last week or so has been a little stressful for many of us. So I think that the light, cute reads is pretty much what my soul needs right now. So that's where I'm at. Definitely 5 stars. 5 stars, 5 stars. I loved it.
Favorite.
I then read Serpent and Dove. This one I saw all over Bookstagram, and I don't really read many books that feature witches, so it was interesting that my first 2 books of October, that's what I pretty much picked up. This one, the back, I'm just going to read the back of it because I feel like it's super short. A witch and a witch hunter bound in holy matrimony. There was only one way such a story could end, a stake and a match. And it was so good. The characters, I love the 2 main characters in this book. They had such great chemistry. The main character, Lou, who is the witch in the story, she was so witty, so tough. She had such a like rough exterior, but when she started to let Reed in, she softened a little bit, and I really loved the way their relationship kind of started to develop throughout. So this was another, I think I gave this one 5 stars too. It is a hunk of a book.
A hunk of a book? Can you clarify? What is are we talking like Baywatch hunk, or are you just saying like it was a lot to get through?
It's a lot to get through, but it
shows you I'm way past October at this point, and I'm like, give me those palette cleanser reads.
I also read The Night Swim. This one, I think, honestly, then I feel like, do I ever read any books that are bad? And I do. But October was really, really good. This one it's interesting. This one goes back and forth between 2 different crimes that are 25 years apart. So you get details on both crimes, both in the past and in the present. It was very, very interesting. I will tell you there are trigger warnings in this for sexual assault and rape. So if you do pick this up, just make sure that you're aware of what you're picking up and what you're reading before, because some of the scenes are quite graphic. It does get really, really heavy, but I was satisfied with the ending of the book. It was a little predictable. Like I kind of predicted how it was going to end, but I still enjoyed it thoroughly. So if you're into true crime, murder mystery, that kind of thing, I definitely recommend this book. The one book,
I think before you go on though, I think you should share how you read that book, because you didn't just read it.
Oh, I didn't just read it. No. Thank you, Sandy. So I have a Scribd subscription, book subscription, and this book was on Scribd. It's $10 a month. I have to say, I love Scribd.
Me too.
Because you can, you're not limited to just one book. So if there were, like, this book was on audio and Serpent and Dove was also on audio, but I didn't discover this one until much later in the book. So I had read like most of it, and then I was like scrolling through Scribd and I realized that the audio was on there, and I was like, oh man. But I was just telling Sandy before we started recording that especially at night, I love to like listen to the book and then follow along as I'm reading, because I do fall asleep at night because I'm tired and old, and I just fall asleep really early. So
if you're old, then I'm like geriatric.
You're not geriatric. Okay, I'm not that old, but still, I'm really tired. And I have 2 children, and I work in a house. And
that's a good reason.
Sandy knows. So anyway.
And I still fall asleep before you do, so.
You do. You go to bed so early.
Gosh, people, I fall asleep at like 8:30. No lie. She'll text me at like 9:15. I respond at like 4 in the morning because that's when I wake up.
That's when she wakes up to run her like 14 miles. Which, can I just say, this has nothing to do with our video, but Sandy made me laugh a few days ago because she was taking a week off of working out. But Sandy's week off of working out isn't a normal person's week of working out is. She still is running like 2 to 3 miles a day, which to me is like, that's like the workout. So Sandy, you know what? I'm proud of you. You're like fantastic.
I'm proud of you too. Look at that bike in the background.
I know. Pedal my
work it, girl.
The thing about this on audio was that certain chapters are podcasts. So the main character in this book is the host of a true crime podcast, and that's where you get a lot of the details for the crime that she's kind of covering for this podcast. What I liked about it was that you get like the music, like the theme music in the beginning of the podcast on the audiobook. It was just really, really great to listen to. So very much recommend. The one book I did not get to was Mexican Gothic, which I feel kind of bad about. I mean, look at this cover. It really is a stunning cover. I think truly that was pretty much the reason why I got the book. But I didn't get to it. And I don't know that I'm going to get to it in November or December. I'm going to be totally honest, because I want all of the holiday rom-com. I want some nonfiction memoirs. Like that's what my soul needs right now. So I'm thinking January. I'm going to bump it to January, and hopefully I'll read it. But I did hear I heard excellent things about this book, so I am looking forward to reading. So that was my October list. I think I had a really great month. I said to Sandy, I feel like Bookstagram has given me the opportunity to find all of these books, and because people are so honest in their reviews, I know what I like and I know what I don't like. So I pick up books that I know that I'm going to like, which is why oftentimes I'm like, oh my God, 4.5 stars, because I know that it's my type of book. So that's my list. I don't know if you like any of these books, or if you've read any of them, feel free to comment below or reach out to us on Instagram. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sandra?
I would love to hear if people also do what Francesca's talking about, where you like read the book and listen to the book at the same time. And the shadow that you see on the screen is once again my dear husband. But I can't be upset because he's doing me a favor and feeding the dogs. Because otherwise you're going to hear Jojo crying. He needs his food. And Jojo struggles with setting the clock back internally. So the 11-year-old dog can no longer reset that clock. So he's ready for food now, which is early, but it's fine. Thank you, honey. Sure. So for my list, I did not have as successful as a month that Francesca had. I will say I read The Holdout and I read The Beautiful, which we talked about in another video. So 2 wins right there. Yes. Good. I made that. I also read Home Before Dark, which I'm going to put up an image of right now. One of these sides, you're going to see it. But I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, and Final Girls by Riley Sager was my favorite novel. And then everything after that was kind of, it was all right. It was still pretty good. And I gave Home Before Dark 5 stars because at first you're like, she's telling you this isn't a real haunting. This house that she was in, it's not real. The house is real, but the haunting wasn't real. It follows a woman who's in her, I think, mid to late 20s, and her dad's claim to fame was they stayed in a house that was kind of like the Amityville Horror in a way, and they left after 20 days, and then he wrote a book about it. So it ended up being a bestseller because he said it was nonfiction. But meanwhile, the girl is like, I don't remember anything about that time. It had to have been fiction. Like, this didn't really happen. And then she goes to stay in the house, and you're like, well, is it fiction? And so it alternates chapters between her current day experiences in the house when she's in her mid to late 20s and her father's book that he wrote about the house and their time in the house when she was only, I think, 5. There ends up being a murder mystery in there. A lot happens, and it happens like the second half of the book. All of a sudden it's like bam, 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 here's all this stuff. And so it really picked up about halfway through, and I really liked some of the twists at the end that you think almost like you see it coming, and then one more twist happens and you're like, holy crap. So that's why I ended up giving it 5 stars. So I was really happy about that. I started the month really strong between Home Before Dark and The Holdout, and then I read my favorite, this has to be probably my favorite book of 2020, honestly. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? Nonfiction. You heard me talk about this in my October TBR. I flippin' loved it. It was so good. You can see I still have my notes in here for it. There's so many fun chapters, and that sounds terrible because it's a nonfiction book about death. But she just has such a humorous way of explaining different scenarios of what happens to a human being when they die. Like, so for example, what would happen if you swallowed a bag of popcorn before you die and were cremated? And so she actually uses the same name in this chapter as Francesca's husband. And so I had to take a picture and send it to him and be like, it would just be so Tim to swallow popcorn kernels before you die. And so I texted him and was like, really, Tim, this is so you? And actually I could see him doing something like that to be funny. I adore him. I think it's funny if he, were to plan something fun like that. Just saying. But she goes into a lot of description about how like the cremation oven would never get hot enough to pop the. I don't want it. Just read it. It's fine. I don't want to spoil it for you. Just read it. But this I gave 5 stars. Like what? I'm sorry.
So that's the takeaway. Just read it. Just
read it. The chapter on what happens to an astronaut. Just read it. She's scientific about it, so like her answers are scientifically based, but she's so funny about it that you're like, the science doesn't get overwhelming. And even though it's big questions from tiny mortals about death, I don't know if I would necessarily read it to young children, but I would let my niece and I would give this to my niece and nephew, but they're 13 and 10, but maybe not to my twin nieces who are in 1st grade, or my other nephews, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, it kind of depends on where they're at, and if you think they can handle the material, or if they're too young. Like, there is such a thing as too young for this. So it just kind of depends. Totally up to you. But I adored this. This was pretty awesome. I also read, at that point, I needed a couple palette cleansers. So in one day, 2 days, 1 day each, I read 2 romance novels because I love horror, but even I need a break sometimes. And so I read The Gritty Truth by Melissa Foster, and I read, it was okay. I mean, The Gritty Truth, he's crying because he ate all his food, and Zoe is still eating, and he wants some of her food. So when you hear him crying, please know my dogs are very well fed. He's just crying because he wants something he can't have. And he's a fatty. So my husband just said he's a fatty. And yeah, so she's currently sitting next to the food, eyeing him as he looks at her food. This is the whole game we play. So I really enjoyed, though, I read a romance called Crazy Stupid Bromance, and that is by Lyssa K. Adams, and it's part of the Bromance book club series. And I really liked the first book, and I ended up not reading the second one yet, but this was the third one, and I got it from NetGalley, and I loved it. Like, it was just the banter between the male characters, like they're just a group of guy friends, and some of them are athletes and some of them are like the main character of this one is a tech guy, so he owns his own like security firm, technology security firm, and just the way that they talk to one another, like they go to a spa. Like imagine a bunch of bros going to the spa, you know, like it was hilarious. They go to get a massage. I need honey.
I'm trying.
Just take it. Hold on 1 second, please. Just take the food away from her. She's done. She's done. She's got her butt in the bowl. She's done. She doesn't want any more. She doesn't want any more. Thank you. Okay. So back to this. Sorry. They go to a spa to get a massage, like to get massages. And there's this whole dialogue of, well, what are we supposed to wear? Are we supposed to go naked? Like, do we just put the robes on? Like, well, are you under a sheet? Like, what happens? And then they've never done this before. And then they're like, well, somebody's going to have their hands on us. Like, what if you fart? Like, it's this whole thing. I actually read it out loud to Paul because I just thought it was hilarious. So that I gave 5 stars to, and totally was not thriller October related. But I needed that palate cleanser. I needed something fun. I tried getting into Witch of Willow Hall, and I put it down. It's not a DNF. I'm not giving up on it, but I did put it down because it wasn't grasping my attention that much, and I think I was only like 6% in, and I felt like I already kind of knew where it was going. But our book club friend, Bernie, shout out to Bernie, she told me to go back and try it again. It's not a page turner, but you'll be interested, and the twist you think is happening is not the real twist. So I am going to go back to it. It's going to be my distraction for November, because my November challenge, if you watch my November TBR, is a nonfiction November challenge, which can get very heavy at times when you're reading nonfiction. So that's going to be my distraction. Now I'm going to talk about my least favorite book. My least favorite book was Hater by David Moody. I did not expect this to be my least favorite book. I expected this to be probably my favorite book. This was a DNF. I stopped around page 100 because I disliked the main character so much. It's not that the writing, it was nothing to do with the author's writing. He was writing just fine. There's some chapters that alternate where it talks about the people going crazy and just randomly killing other people. And those chapters were phenomenal, which sounds terrible, but you get what I'm trying to say. But the main character is so unlikable. I mean, one of the first things he tells you is that he's a lazy bastard. Like you just dislike him. He's terrible with his kids. He has a terrible relationship with his wife. He's so detached that when there's a fight happening in a restaurant in front of them and he's watching a guy stab another guy and he runs out of the building, he forgets one of his children. You know, he's one of those. So it was tough. And I pulled the plug around page 100 or so, because I thought to myself, you would love this if it were a movie, so keep trying. And then I thought, I dislike this character so much that I don't care what happens to him. And this sounds terrible because Francesca's a mom and I'm not, but I didn't like his kids either. So
it's okay. Sometimes
I didn't like the kids either. So the terrible person in me was like, I don't care what happens to his kids either. So at that point, like I had zero investment in the characters and I just had to step away. I am disappointed that I never got to R.L. Stine's Return to Fear Street, The Wrong Girl. So I do hope to get to this at some point in November or December. This might be another, flip side palette cleanser for me at some point. So my October, not nearly as successful as Francesca's. I didn't enjoy, it started off strong, but I didn't enjoy the ending.
Happens though. I also think sometimes we set such high expectations for books, like, oh my God, I know I'm totally gonna love this book. And then just like you saw with Hater, sometimes that doesn't happen. So the only thing that we can say is hopefully November we'll have we'll read all books that we thoroughly enjoy and we'll take it from there. But I don't know. I thought that you had a great month, to be honest. And like I said, the audio for the night swim, I think that definitely helped me because I went through it much faster than I would have if I was just reading it on my own. So,
see, it's usually the opposite for me. But but it's also because audiobooks, as you know, I go to bed early. Audiobooks make me tired. So right now, Nonfiction November, I'm actually listening to, I'm reading one nonfiction book, but I'm also listening on script to The Only Plane in the Sky, The Oral History of 9/11. And I don't have words for how powerful it is. Listening to the audio version of it is incredibly powerful. There are times where you listen to the audio of what was like a phone call that took place, a voicemail that was left, a 911 call, and you don't get that from reading the book. You know, the words are compelling enough, but you don't necessarily get that just from the print book itself. And so there are times where, for me, like I listen to nonfiction audiobooks. I like hearing the author's voice. Before we started, Francesca told me, you know, we're buddy reading Jessica Simpson's memoir that came out earlier in 2020, I believe. And she said that there's an audio version of it, and it is more powerful when you hear it from the person's perspective. Like you're reading their own words, but when you're listening to them talk about their own words, you get more of the emotion behind it. And so, you know, this is not an advertisement, nor is this sponsored by Scribd, but they have a lot of titles on there. It's a very easy program to use, and it's relatively inexpensive for, you know, less than $10 a month. And you don't buy things separately. You know, what you pay for monthly is you get everything that's in their app then. So, you know, I haven't used Audible, so I can't really say much about Audible. I can just say that I know you get a credit, but then you have to buy other things. Whereas on Scribd, sometimes you might have to wait longer for something that's a new release. But if you're really interested in backlist titles in particular, then it might be a really good option if you want audiobooks. So that was our October wrap up. I think we probably thought it would have gone a little faster than I think. We ended up having a lot more to say than I think we originally planned on. But you know, overall, it was a good challenge to try. We both needed a little bit of a palate cleanser after a while. So make sure you check out our November TBR videos so you can see what we're trying in November. And again, we're going to buddy read the Jessica Simpson book. And I did want to give a shout out to another small business. I lost the word for a minute. A small business on Etsy, just to wrap up October. I don't drink coffee. Francesca drinks coffee, but I have tea every once in a while. So she's got it there. My mug is empty, so I can't even pretend. But I wanted to give a shout out to this shop on Etsy. I'm just looking them up real quick so I get the name right. Countryside Creation 8. So there's actually the number 8 at the end. And I will put their information in the description below, where Francesca and I will also put our Instagram handles if you wanted to follow us. But this one I thought was amazing. So it says squad goals, and it has the pictures of some horror movie friends of mine here. So, and I just love the detail, like the black rim and, you know, the black handle here. So it was, and it's on both sides, and it's just the perfect size for a cup of tea because it's not really big. Like Francesca, hold up your mug. Your mug was really big.
Too big.
She's got a pretty big mug going on. This is much smaller. So this is only like the 8 or the 11 ounce, but it came very fast. It's very well done. I mean, it came out amazing. I love it. So squad goals. So that's it. Do we have anything else, Francesca?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah, we hope you had a wonderful October and that everybody is safe and happy and healthy. And again, be sure to check out our November TBRs and also when we post our buddy read for November and anything else fun that we might have to share with you. But if you read something spectacular in October, like Francesca said, please drop us a line below, comment on the video, let us know what you read so that we can add to our ever-growing, this side, TBR piles. And you can see Francesca's bookshelf is full as well. So make sure you tell us what you're reading and maybe we can read it too. So thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.